Hey y'all, it's Coach in the Fight here. Got Stacy with me.
Hey everybody.
And we're looking in chapter 47, which was spiritual gifts and spiritualization. Now, we want to talk on this chapter here. First of all, you had a question, didn't you, the other day?
I had a question about, I think it was actually this morning, about what do you have to do to get the Spirit?
Right.
I don't know if I worded it right, but I was asking something in that line.
Right, because just touching a little bit, you talked about, the difference between the church you used to attend, the Pentecostal church, where y'all had to come in and do some tarrying to get that Spirit.
Yeah, and the previous church that I attended, you would have to come in and do a continuous chant, praise, asking for the Father to give you the Spirit. So it was like something that came in out of nowhere and came in and went inside of you.
Yeah, okay. So we're not going to touch on that Spirit too much. But we're all going to touch on what the scripture says on spiritualization, or what does spirituality mean. Now, I did a little preliminary search on YouTube, and there's a couple of people putting classes up there, but none of them are really Bible-based classes. These are people talking, I guess, from intuition, or what they think, feel, or what they've experienced, or what even they've learned in their mysticism classes. But there's nothing really I found where they could point to scripture to say anything, and that's not surprising. Because there's not a whole lot in the Old Testament. You remember in the Old Testament or the New Testament where it talks about spirituality?
No, not at all.
No, so you have to come to the Third Testament of the Bible. And that's what you're looking at here. Chapter 48, spiritual gifts and spiritualization, comes from the Third Testament of the Bible. And, if you've been around my channel, I am heavily promoting all scripture, Old Testament, New Testament as well, and Apocrypha. Dead Sea Scrolls, anything scripture. That's what we teach over here. But we're focusing heavily on the Third Testament because not a lot of people are aware of it, and it is the spirit and truth that we have been promised. It has a wealth of information in here, and today we're going to talk about spirituality and what it means. Right? So you got three different sections here: the spiritual abilities of human beings, the requirements and characteristics of authentic spirituality, and the blessed effects of spirituality. Right? Anything before we get started?
Well, I'm very interested in learning because when you think of the word spirit, you usually think of something unknown. And so, sometimes you think of it as, like you said, mysticism,
right,
and stuff. And if it has something to do with the Messiah, Christ, us as believers, I'm ready to learn.
All right, now, guys, bear with me. Now, I'm sure this is going to turn out to be a pretty healthy class here. It's going to take up quite a little bit of YouTube space. But what we're going to be doing is touching through the Bible. It's not going to be much intuition. I try not to do that unless I can back it up with a scripture. So bear with us. It is a bit biblically based, so we're all going to try to go and touch on at least each one of the verses here. We're only let's try to limit it to 1 minute per verse. Maybe we can get through it a little faster. So you'll help us with that?
Yeah, if you don't digress, Cliff, you know how you are.
Hey, I talk when the Spirit leads me. But let's go. You want to read?
Sure, I'll read.
All right, read verse 1. Let's do it like this, so for the sake of time. See if you can make it all the way through each verse, and then we'll elaborate on it a little bit. Maybe that'll get us through it faster. All right, go ahead.
1. When this skeptical, incredulous, and materialistic humanity find itself faced with a divine manifestation, or what they call miracles, they instantly seek out explanations or evidence to demonstrate that there was no supernatural action, that there was no miracle.
Now this goes on all the time. This is every time. You can witness it. You witness it from yourself. You witness it from other people, even on television. If somebody were to come on television and say a miracle just happened, you're going to have a bunch of people that's going to pop up and want to know details. Well, what happened to this? Where did this come from? How did that work? And what they're doing is they're proving that no, it wasn't really a miracle. You just thought it was, It was really just a natural occurrence and a little bit of luck splashed in there, and it's something that happens every day.
Coincidence.
When
a man appears manifesting an uncommon spiritual gift, mockery, doubt, and indifference arise before him to quiet his voice, and calls to justice and warning messages for men. They attribute all to chance. Humanity has never been so insensitive, so blind and deaf to all that is divine. all that is spiritual and eternal as it is today.
Right. It's talking about today, 2018, this time period that we live in, where nobody really believes in anything unnatural. Nobody believes in anything supernatural. By now, they've gotten rid of all of the scriptural texts that talk of supernatural powers, like the powers that the Israelite children had and different stuff. You have to look in apocryphal books to find out, these powers that these people have. And, we're going through making sure that, anything that seems supernatural is explained away. So, and when you have a person, like talking about here, even a person who shows any kind of supernatural gift, the first thing people do is, they try to quiet his voice. If you don't believe it, go on YouTube and look at the comment section. YouTube provides a great avenue for people to do just this through the comment section. And they do. They light them up. Go ahead.
A lot of people get mocked by it. Well, I would think, people get mocked by it.
Right. Yeah, and, anytime anybody show a spiritual gift.
Millions of men call themselves Christians, but the majority of them do not know the doctrine of Christ. They say they love the works I perform as man, but their manner of believing, thinking, or conceptualizing demonstrates that they do not know the essence of my doctrine.
Right. So we hear about the story of, the Messiah in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And we say, what a great story. We want to follow his example. But when we look closely at his example, we find out that he was homeless. He was barefoot. He didn't have any sort of income whatsoever. He all he did was help people. He everything he had he gave for the poor, and all the time he had he devoted it to healing the sick and teaching the law. So we say we love what he did, but when we look at his life in comparison to ours, it's really nothing like it at all.
I came to show you the life of the Spirit, to reveal to you the powers contained in it. That is why I came to the world. Okay,
now he's telling you here, and he's going to expound on it a little bit, but he's telling you how, his purpose of walking the earth. Now, go ahead to verse 5.
I healed the sick with no medicine whatsoever. I spoke to the spirits, freed the possessed of strange and supernatural influences, spoke with nature, transfigured myself from man to spirit and spirit to man, and each of those works had the goal of showing you the road of the evolution of the Spirit.
Right. So now this part right here jumps out at me a lot, where he says road of the evolution of the Spirit. Because when I see this and when I see this phrase, it makes me think kind of like a timeline, or kind of like a order of progression. I can't think of the right word, but it's kind of putting it in order here, saying that the first thing that he did could be very well be the first thing that we do, and that's healing people with no medicine at all. How would he do that? That's through prayer, right?
Through prayer, yeah. Through prayer.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the first spiritual gift that we get. Along this road of spiritual evolution, the first thing that we encounter is the ability to heal people. Right.
By praying.
And our personal experience, a lot of people were healed in our house and around our home, some of our neighbors, before we even knew anything was even going on, right? Mm-hmm. We kind of look back and people start saying, hey, well, what about my toothache, or what about my bellyache, or what about this stuff? And skin conditions just went away. Yeah. Right? And then what does he say the next one? He said he spoke to the spirits, and he spoke to the spirits. Remember when he spoke to the spirits?
Yeah, when he spoke to the spirits, and for one, I remember is when he sent the spirits into the group of hogs.
Yeah, when he told them to come out, and in several occasions he talked to them face to face. And what's weird about all of that story is the spirits really spoke to him first. When he approached, it's like he was trying to be humble and quiet, and the spirits jumped out like, hey.
They always seemed to. They always knew him. He told them, not to reveal who he was.
Right.
They always knew who he was.
Right. And then he gave them a command, and they followed that command. So he spoke to the spirits. He said he freed the possessed of strange and supernatural influences. Now that's about the same thing,
right.
And then he says he spoke with nature. What about speaking with nature?
Well, I think of when he was in the boat.
Right, he was taking a nap, and there was a storm going on, and
calmed the winds and
he told the storm, "Be quiet. I'm trying to sleep over here." He said he's transfigured himself from man to spirit and spirit to man. You remember that?
That's when I think it was Elijah.
Yeah, when he was in was Mount Gethsemane or wherever, and him and Elijah and Moses, or Elisha and Moses, they were there, and they wanted to make a temple to him. He said, now each of those works had a goal of showing you the road of evolution. So this was a demonstration of what we're supposed to do once we attain spirituality, but it's also showing you a progression. In my mind, it's kind of showing you, what to expect. Once you start healing people, you need to start, looking for these spirits to talk to. And once you can talk to the regular spirits, then you start talking to the other ones.
Yeah.
Right? And,
And well, when I know we're going to move on, but when you speak, thinking about speaking of nature, when we ask for rain and different things of that nature.
Right, and we're praying, we are, praying for the Lord to hold off the rain, or praying for it. But then we're actually speaking spirit to spirit communication. If we're doing it right, we're speaking to the spirit and asking the Lord to do those things, to stop the rain or to give us rain. Well, this is different. He's talking directly to the rain. You learn in other books, some of the apocryphal books, that there is angels over each one of the elements. Each one of the elements have their own angel that that guides them or makes sure they do what they're supposed to be doing. So maybe you're talking directly to those angels, or maybe you're talking directly to the rain. I don't know.
Sort of like telling the mountain to move, and it moves.
Right.
6 says, you carry within you two true treasures, powers and gifts you do not even guess at. But from ignorance you weep like paupers. What do you know of the powers of prayer and the strength of thought? What do you know of the profound content of the communication between spirit and spirit? Okay. Now, you had something? Nothing you materialistic and carnal humanity.
Right. Didn't let you finish. All right. So now I do want to promote this third testament in the Bible, but I also want to promote my channel, because we've done a lot of classes on some of this stuff. He talks about the treasures that we have. Speaking on those first, we have a lot of treasures, we have a lot of gifts, but we don't really understand these gifts, and we don't really understand these powers and stuff that we have, because we're looking at it from the wrong idea. We're looking at it from a materialistic, a carnal mind, kind of, natural ability kind of stuff, and we're not looking at the true powers that the Lord gives us through prayer, thought, and spirit-to-spirit communication. Okay. So now we did a class on prayer. The proper prayer. There is right. You remember that class?
Mm-hmm, I do.
There is a correct way to prayer, which implies that there is an incorrect way to pray. So if we're expecting to take advantage of these spiritual gifts, well, if we don't know how to use them, what good are they?
Right. It's like you got to approach him in a certain manner. Right. If you want your prayers answered.
So we have to learn how to pray. And then also it talks about the power of thoughts. Now, this is the third testament of the Bible, and I can't remember exactly what chapter it is, but it talks about the power of thoughts. What he's talking about here is, what's the word? It's slipping my tongue.
Intuition?
Not intuition. Telepathy.
Telepathy. Right.
He's talking about telepathy, actually being able to communicate, first of all, from our spirit to spirits and to people in the spirit world, but then also talking to each other, I believe. Now that may require a whole lot of progression on our part and their part too, to actually be able to do that. And I've tried and it don't work. And it's only because I haven't learned enough about spirituality, and that's what we're doing here. All right, and then spirit to spirit communication. There's a whole section, maybe even a whole chapter on what that means. Praying spirit to spirit, or talking to the Father spirit to spirit.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn this kind of stuff. All right. All right. Let's go. And like I said, you can find a lot of these classes on our channel, and or you can read this book yourself. You can find the Third Testament of the Bible online if you go to go online and type in Third Testament of the Bible, Revelations of Jesus Christ. Look for a website called JesusComes.com. You can find this exact copy that we're looking at here. All right, you can read it, or you can find an audio book.
Spirituality is what I expect of the world. Before me, the names with which each set or religion distinguishes itself have no importance, nor do the greater or lesser splendor of their rites and outward worship. Those things reach only human senses. They do not reach my spirit.
Right. So now notice he says spirituality is what he expects of the world. And this is a light way of saying, what he's saying here is this is the goal. This is the whole purpose of this whole thing. Actually, people say, what's the meaning of life? To become spiritualized, to become like him. You know, we were created in his image, and then because of the fall of Adam, we were kicked down to this dimension, or this dwelling place that we live in now, where it's materialistic. We have bodies, but we are going back to the spirit being. After these bodies are thrown in the hole, and we've reached we've accomplished all of our goals here on earth, we then go on to become spiritual beings again, like him. And he says that's the expectation. But now he goes on to talk about the religions here. And all the different religions of the world, he's saying that their names don't matter. Names like Catholic, names like Pentecostal, names like Hindus, or, you know, all kinds of Buddhists. Those names don't really matter at all. You know, it's not really important at all. Neither are the rites or the splendor. You think of the Pope dressing up all big and fancy, but then you have other people who are doing the opposite. They're dressing down, you know, really being humble in their dress. And what he's saying, neither one of them really matters. That's all materialistic stuff. All of that reaches the human senses. That's sensual stuff. Our eyes, ears, nose, you know, I hope we ain't tasting too much. Well, I guess we are tasting a little bit of it, but that's not what matters to him. You know, it doesn't reach him. That's only for our benefit. You in deep thought over there. You want to share some of it? Go ahead.
I was thinking, you know, we say this stuff, but does this stuff matter?
What stuff matters?
Does it matter in a sense of this physical world?
Only for your body. You have to take care of your body. Food is a materialistic. Is materialistic. Food is materialistic. I mean, you look at it, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can taste it, you can hear it. Well, if you got some, you know, right kind of cereal, you can hear it. But it's sensual stuff. But if you don't have it, if you try to avoid it, you're gonna die.
Right.
So some of it is important, but some of it is not. And he's going to touch on that in a little bit in a minute. Right? What actually stuff you have to get away from. But go ahead, we'll get to that. Go ahead.
Number 8, I expect spirituality of men because it means the elevation of life, the ideal of perfection, the love of good, the worship of truth, the practice of charity, and harmony with oneself, which is harmony with others, and therefore with God.
Okay, now, like I said, I did a preliminary search. I jumped on YouTube, and I just punched in real quick, what is spirituality? And there's a whole bunch of videos on there, you know, and there's a lot of people watching these videos, so there's a lot of people trying to find out, but none of them use scripture to back up what it says. None of them have any verses. Well, verse 8 right here, I think, defines what spirituality is. What is spirituality? It says, what it says, it means the elevation of life, the ideal of perfection. Okay, what we want to touch on each one? What is the elevation of life? What does that mean to you?
Well, elevate means bring higher.
Bring higher.
To have a higher way of life.
Higher way, yeah. Not really thinking on carnal stuff, you know, but thinking higher minded, thinking on our brothers, thinking on our neighbors, thinking on, you know, even those who are passed on to the spirit world. You know, if you don't have any elevation in your life, you're not thinking about any of those stuff. All you're thinking about is what you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, how cold and hot you are. Yeah, right now. The ideal of perfection, what is that? You talk on it often. Well,
perfection means that you're complete, whole. So the ideal that everything is good, everything is perfect, everything is complete.
According to the law. Right? Okay. Perfection means, remember from Hermas, he talked about, you know, being Hermas, being perfect.
Right.
Well, he's talking about perfecting ourselves around the law, because first thing everybody's going to jump over it. Nobody's perfect. Well, you know, we try to, we love the idea of perfection. I mean, we're working towards, you know, being perfect, meaning we're reading the scripture and we're trying to live according to it. The love of good.
The love of good. Well, that just means that you love doing what's right.
Well, yeah, and it seems really, really simple until about, you know, 4 years ago when I started doing a search on evil in this world. I kind of started off in the music industry, and, you know, I went on to the movie industry, and it went on to politics, finance, and everything. And what I found out is that there is a lot of evil in this world, and it has us completely engulfed in it. We all partaking in it every day. From the time we wake up and eat our bacon sandwich to the time we go to sleep watching, you know, the night show on television, we are into, or I ain't gonna say into, we are, evil is all around us. So what it's saying is we have to love the good, you know. Even though the bad is around us, we love the good part of what's around us.
The worship of truth.
The worship of truth, right? And he says worship of truth. Now, there's a lot of people seeking truth. A lot of people say they love the truth, but you have to really find out what the truth is, And just like, worshiping the Father, you can't worship the Father until you start reading his word and know who he is. Well, the same way with the truth. You're going to have to know what the truth is before you can worship the truth. Then it says the practice of charity.
Uh-oh.
Huh? Well, yeah, we talk about this a lot because it's the practice of charity is loved ones towards our neighbors, doing stuff for them, and such, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Harmony with oneself.
Harmony with oneself. Now, there's a lot of people that can talk on this more than I can. I am still. This is one of the areas that I. After reading it, I'm thinking, well, maybe I need to work on this more. It says harmony with others and therefore with God. So maybe I need a little more harmony in my life. What about you?
Yeah, I always need harmony, especially with kids.
But this is what it means to be spiritual. This is spirituality wrapped up in one verse here. We could stop here, but we ain't. Right? We're going to go on, see what else it says. Because it does give a lot more. It goes into detail of what this stuff is. All right? Go ahead.
Spirituality does not mean mysticism, nor does it imply the performance of any rite, nor is it a form of external worship. Spirituality means the development of all the faculties of man, those that correspond to the human part, just as those that vibrate beyond the senses of the body, which are the powers, attribute, faculties, and senses of the spirit.
All right. Now, it says here, spirituality does not mean mysticism. Now, mysticism, let me get a synonym right here. I looked up the synonym, but let's look. Computer cooperate. It means religion or theology or spirituality or holiness or religious studies. So spirituality doesn't mean religion.
Right.
Doesn't mean religious studies. Right? Nor does it imply the performance of any rite. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, but you have all of these rites going on that people are doing, ceremonies and different stuff. I think we went to an event about a month ago where they were doing a ceremony. Remember they did a rain dance kind of thing?
Something like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a rite. That's a kind of that's what they're talking about. Spirituality doesn't mean that kind of stuff. It doesn't say they have to avoid it, but that's not what spirituality is. That wasn't a spiritual act that they did when they were doing that rain dance. That was a material act.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Nor is it a form of external worship, meaning, like the guys who want to pray out loud and do all of this other stuff, so everybody can see them.
Right.
That's not spirituality.
Well, a lot of times you hear, growing up in the church, you hear people get up and they'll give a word from the Lord. They got the Spirit on them, but that's not spirituality.
Well, in that moment, now they may have received the word through a spiritual form. They may have been in a place where they have done all the requirements, and that's coming up a section on requirements. But they fulfilled the requirements and they got the word from the Lord. But no, when they actually come in and start telling you, it's material. It's material. But that's kind of a gray area there, where
Mm-hmm. Number 10.
Are we ready? Yeah, go ahead.
Spirituality is the fair and just application of all those gifts that man possesses. Spirituality is harmony with all that surrounds you.
Now here's this word again, harmony, right? So we have to have harmony with everything around us. I guess this is how we know that we are away from our spiritual nature when we're not in harmony with things around us. Things kind of go bad. Maybe you think of bugs biting you, or stuff raining on your stuff, or arguments and different stuff are indications that we don't have harmony. And in my mind, it may be indications that our spirituality may be suffering a little bit. Right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right? But going back up there to verse 9, I did want to touch on that up there where it says. It says, those that correspond to the human part, just as those that vibrate beyond the senses of the body. So it's talking about our faculties, our gifts and stuff. But he's talking about ones that vibrate beyond the senses of our body.
What does that mean?
Stuff we don't even know about. Remember, out there he says remember the first verse of this section said that we have strengths, we have gifts, but we crying like paupers. Well, some of these gifts that we have are beyond our senses. They're beyond the five senses.
Some that we'll never know about, or with spirituality you will find them
You
out.
will start to find them out, that you have more than, you have more there. And here, powers here, I want to speak on that word powers here, because that's one of the words that come out of Hermas, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's talking about the 12 virtues there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, but let's go on. Where we at, 11?
11.
All right, let's go on.
In that time I taught you the greatest virtue, which is charity. I inspired your hearts and sensitized your sentiments. Now I come to reveal to you all the gifts with which your spirit is endowed, so that you may develop them and apply them to doing charity among your fellow men. Okay,
so he's saying when he came and when the Messiah walked around on the earth, he taught us the greatest virtue, right, which is love. Or charity towards man. And you have to separate the two. For a long time I went for the whole love and charity is the same thing. Love is different. Love is kind of like a feeling, where charity is act. Now, charity, there's stuff behind it. There's action behind it. You know what I mean? You can love me all you want, but if I'm sitting here hungry, your charity is going to be a sandwich and some water or something like that. Right. But he said now. Talking about this time, he's talking about the third testament of the Bible. See, there he's talking about the New Testament, or the Second Testament. But he's saying now in this testament, in this work, in this revelation, I come to reveal to you all the gifts which your spirit endowed. So we are about to be evolved. We're about to evolve spiritually here. That's what he come to do. And that's what this document is going to help us do. Through knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, it's going to help us to develop. Okay? So that, what did it say? So that we can apply them to doing charity among your fellow man. That is the number one command, right? Charity love towards your fellow. What is it? Love towards the Father, and then love towards your fellow man.
Yes.
Right. So, and he's saying that in this era, in this document, now he's going to teach us how to do that. What it looks like.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Knowledge of spiritual life will permit you to carry out works similar to those that were performed by your master. Remember what I told you, that upon developing your faculties, you would perform real prodigies. Knowledge
of your spiritual life. Knowledge, all right? And that's why we're doing this class, because we have to have knowledge of our spiritual life in order so that we can carry out the work similar to the Messiah, similar to Jesus, Yehoshua HaMashiach. It's the knowledge of what we're talking about here that will allow us to do that.
Is this when he said that you will perform works greater than I perform them?
Well, yeah, and they're prodigies. They're prodigies here. Normally we would think of prodigies as miracles, right? And he's saying that we will perform miracles, right? But the thing is, we learn in the Third Testament that those aren't really miracles. They're things that we're supposed to have power to do anyway. It's just that we are suppressing those power through our materialistic stuff. We're focusing on knowledge of other stuff, materialistic stuff, and not really focusing on knowledge of spiritual stuff. Therefore, these seem like prodigies. They seem like miracles. They seem like wonders. They seem like supernatural stuff. When really they're not. They're gifts that we have already. We just don't know. We just don't have the knowledge or skill to use them.
So at one time, were these gifts available to the people, say, of Old Testament and Second Testament?
They have always been available, but you had to climb Jacob's ladder, and there were certain people that you could look at throughout history, and not history, but throughout the biblical history, that actually did this. People like David, people like Solomon, people like Moses, people like even Noah. They would have reached a higher level of spirituality so that they could have spirit-to-spirit communication, so they could have gotten these divine instructions that they used to then lead the rest of the people. It has always been available. It's just you got to have the knowledge. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know how to use it.
And material.
Yeah, we are
inundated with
materialistic stuff, and we haven't been able to get past that yet. And it's through the knowledge of the Third Testament, the knowledge of spirit and truth, through knowledge of the entire Word of God, that we're going to find out how to do these prodigies.
Okay. 13. All of you possess the gifts of the Spirit, which are beginning to develop in this third era due to the evolution reached by the spirits. Intuition, foresight, revelation, prophecy, and inspiration are manifesting in a clear way among humanity. And it is this that proclaims the new era. It is the light of the book of the seven seals, open, in this era to the 6th chapter.
Okay, now, first thing I want to bring out in this verse where it's talking about which are beginning to develop in this third era. So, now the third testament of the Bible was constructed, compiled, it was given through divine inspiration in 1886. And it is during this time when, like I said down there, the book of the 7 seals was opened to the 6th chapter. And now that we're in the 6th chapter, we are getting this stuff like intuition, foresight, revelation, prophecy, inspiration. All of this stuff is going on in this era, right? We are evolving spiritually. And that's why we need this third testament. That's why the Father brought this document here in a timely manner, is because we're getting all of this spiritual stuff. But what would happen if we didn't have any type of manual, any type of guidance to go with it?
It's like we're evolving, but it's instructions to show us how to live through this involvement.
Yeah, how to take advantage of it. You're given the gift. You're given the gift of spirituality. If we don't give you an instruction with it, any proper instruction with it, then what's going to happen? You're going to default to what you already know, materialism, carnal, nature, and so you're going to develop your spiritual understanding around what you already understand. And it's going to be messed up. Mm-hmm. You got to have some truth to go along with it. You got to have spirit and truth, or you're going to turn into demons. You're going to turn into demons. You're going to be doing dumb stuff. You're going to be doing devilish stuff. The natural man. The heart of the natural man is evil. He has to train his heart to be different. And if you're going to get the gift anyway, you have the gift anyway. If you never train your heart from being wicked, which it was from birth, what's going to happen? Your spirituality is going to be wicked. All right, well, let's go.
14. You who know the reason for these manifestations and the era in which you live, channel your gifts into the road of love. Be always prepared to offer your charity, and you will always be in harmony with my law, and serve as an example to your brothers. Then you will be my disciples and be recognized as such.
Okay, now it's talking about here. He says, "You who know the reason for these manifestations and the era in which you live." Now, this is the pre-tribulation time that I'm giving this class here, and a lot of you, probably all 2 or 3 of you that are going to watch it, you are what you are who he's talking about here. You found this channel probably not by accident. You was probably searching around, which meaning you already are aware of what's going on. You know we're in a different time. You know something is, you know that there's a lot going on here. And he's saying if you are one of these people, he's saying channel your gifts into the road of love, meaning start doing charitable deeds, start helping people. Now the other people, the ones that he's not mentioning here, these are the people that's still asleep. These are the ones that are going to continue in materialism and other stuff, and they're not going to recognize that we're in a new era or that times has changed until after the events, after the major events that happen in life, whether the asteroids or the volcanoes or the earthquakes or whatever. So he's saying those of you who know early, start doing charitable deeds.
And you will always be in harmony with my law.
Where are you at?
Right here.
Right. You will always, it says, offer your charity, and you will always be in harmony with my law. Now, this is a key, right? Because this is really some supernatural stuff. It's saying that if you go out and perform charitable deeds with your brother, somehow you're going to be in harmony with the law. What does that mean? It's gonna kind of direct your paths, kind of direct your actions.
That's what I would think. I would think it would mean something like that.
All right. Or maybe it's that once you get in a mind of charity, everything else will fall in place. You won't be breaking any other commandments. You won't be, stealing from your neighbor. You won't be lying on your brother. You won't be, messing around with his wife or his possessions or, Right?
So when you speak of key, you're speaking of you do this and this is what you're going to get, right?
Right. And that's what, in that term, I guess I was talking, you do this and you get that. So we do charity and we get harmony.
Right.
So, and I talked about earlier how I got harmony issues. Well, I need to write this down on my paper. More charity, more harmony. All All right, and then it says, then you will be my disciples and be recognized as such. Now, this is important here because who are his disciples? Nobody in the world even thinks about being the Messiah's disciples.
Well, we think of that when the 12 were over. Well, we think that he only had 12.
Right.
When those 12, quote, for lack of a better word, died out, there are no more disciples.
There are no more disciples, right? And even when we go down and be a disciple we at the church, you're a disciple of the pastor of the church. You're not really a disciple of the Messiah. But he's saying once you do this charity and get this harmony, then not only will you be his disciple, but you're going to be recognized as such. You're going to be seen as such. All right, let's go on.
When men love and know how to forgive, when humility exists in their hearts, and they have made the Spirit impose itself over the material, the flesh, the world, and the passions will no longer form the thick veil that prevents you from looking back or forward on the road. On the contrary, the material spiritualized by the practice of my doctrine shall be like a docile servant to the dictates of the conscience instead of what it is now, an obstacle, a trap, a blindfold over the eyes of the Spirit. That's a lot. That was a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. So let's slow it down. He says, when men love and know how to forgive, and humility exists in their hearts, and they have made the Spirit impose itself over the man. Made the Spirit impose itself over the man. This is one thing we got to do. You got to make this. See, your material.
Make the Spirit impose over the material, the flesh, and the world. Yeah.
Because your material is imposing over your spirit. Heavily, it's beating your spirit down. It's like a big old blanket, a big wool blanket over your spirit. Your material is. It's blocking it from being able to see, from being able to hear, from being able to do stuff. It's really holding it back. But when you can force your spirit to become stronger and taking over your material, you're not going to get rid of your material. It's always going to be there. But when your material can be second in your life and your spirit first, then you can have all of these other gifts.
Well, I can see how that's important because it says that you say when you force, you're always going to have the material is always going to be here. The flesh is always going to be here. The world and the passions are always going to be here. But when you force your spirit to take the leadership, the head over the material, the flesh and stuff, by doing, I was going to ask, how do you do this? And it's by doing charitable deeds.
And there's some more stuff too that we have another section we're going to get to on the requirements of spirituality. But yeah, you have to learn how. You have to get knowledge of such, and there's different stuff that you have to actually do. And he says once you do this, look at this part here. Will no longer form a thick veil that prevents you from looking back and forward on the road. What does that mean to you?
Well, I'm thinking it's talking about the road to, when we previously talked about the road, the evolution, the road to the road to get to.
Yeah. It could be
sterilization.
No, what he's talking about is your own personal road, this journey that you're on.
Right. Okay.
So when you become more spiritual, when you are able, when your spirit is able to impose over the material, flesh, word, passions, and such, then you will actually be able to see not only your past but your future. That's what he's saying here. You'll be able to see your future. Mm-hmm. Not really every detail of your future, but certain parts of it will become clear to your spirit man, who could then translate it to you to prevent you from getting yourself into some kind of harm or danger, which is particularly when it will be used.
Right.
He don't want us playing lottery numbers and nothing like that, but he don't want he allows us a way to stay out of trouble, and that's allowing us to know certain parts of our future.
Okay. But
it's only through spirituality. What does it say? On the contrary, the material spiritualized by the practice of my doctrine shall be like a docile servant to the dictates of the conscience instead of what it is now. Now, talking about the conscience here, docile servant to the dictates of his conscience. Our conscience is a huge thing, for the lack of a better word, inside of us. But our materialism, just like our spirituality, is beating it down. We can't really hear from our conscience. We don't follow our conscience because we don't hear from our conscience. Well, It's saying that once we, what it says, the spiritualized by the practice of my doctrine shall be like a docile servant to the dictates of the conscience. Meaning we get along with the conscience. We have no problem, hearing from our conscience. Instead of what it is now, an obstacle, a trap, or a blindfold over the eyes of the spirit. Right? I know I messed that up, but I'm going to get on.
I understand what you're saying. That definitely makes sense.
Oh, that makes one of us. Go ahead.
Intuition, which is clairvoyance, presentiment, and prophecy, clears the mind and makes the heart beat in response to the messages and voices it received from the infinite.
All right, so now we're going to get heavily into intuition. This whole section is about intuition. We could actually stop here. I'm not sure why they didn't put a whole nother paragraph mark here and start a whole nother section on intuition. Let me see where, But, so let's just go on. Go to 17.
By means of the gift of intuition, which I have given to all men, you may discover many things hidden among the heart's secret, many tragedies that affect not only the earthly lives, but also the spirits of your brothers.
Right. So he's talking about intuition, knowing stuff, So he's going to tell us that, we have the ability to have charity towards our brother using intuition.
How can one enter the intimacy of those hearts without wounding them or profaning their secrets? How can one discover the hidden pains that shadow the lives of our brothers? I have already told you, intuition, the gift that is part of a spiritual sight, which will reach full development in you through prayer, shall show you the way to calm the pain of each one of your fellow men. So
he's talking about, you see your brother over there, something's wrong, but you're not really supposed to go and just ask him, what's going on and pry into his stuff, especially if he don't want to tell you. So we say, how do you help him? Through intuition. Right.
It's like you see your brother or your sister in distress, and through intuition, you're given this to calm them, to make them feel better.
And it says, I have already told you, intuition, the gift that is part of the spiritual sight and which will reach full development through prayer. So we want to have intuition, right?
Right.
So now we're understanding that in order to have intuition, to be able, to understand our brother without, prying deeply into, his soft spots or whatever, we pray and we develop intuition. Mm-hmm. And then we can help him without hurting him more. If we ask him, we're going to end up hurting him more, especially if it's something he's embarrassed about.
Right, that's what I was about to say. If he's embarrassed about it, right. Mm-hmm.
But, all right.
It teaches you how to approach him.
All right. Let's go.
How many mysteries still exist for man? He is surrounded by invisible and untouchable beings that should already be visible and touchable.
What does he talk about there?
Spirits, different spirits.
He's talking about spirits. He's talking about ghosts for the yeah, that's what he's talking about. He's saying that there's a lot of things going on around us that we should be aware of, but we're not. We're materialistic. We're not spiritually minded people, so we don't see all of this stuff going on around us.
Right. Yeah. You often see this stuff in movies, but, you think it's just Hollywood and stuff like that.
You know what I think? And I know we're getting off a quick set. I'm going to try to get back on subject. But I think Hollywood found a copy of this document, the Third Testament of the Bible, and they've been writing movies about it. I think it is. It was a one dude, I can't remember the little TV show where the dude was walking around with the little gadget, and he was punching these buttons in this thing, and his other friend was jumping. He would jump from different times and different places and all of that kind of stuff. Right. And then there was movies where the guy would be he would be in like a battle zone situation. He'd get warped out to some other life that he was living or whatever. All that seemed like they took it right out of his book and made videos out of it.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking about, I think it was like a television series or something where you just see spirits walking around. You know what I'm saying? Just everyday spirits walking around.
And I think that's where they got it from. And yeah, so what this is saying is once we develop, we're actually going to be able to see these things. Remember Matthew, he talks about voices. Even Revelation talks about voices. All right, let's go on.
A life full of beauty and revelation palpitates over the existence of man, and these in their blindness have not managed to see it.
Blinded by materialism, blinded by the lack of knowledge, blinded by, a lot of stuff that's getting in our way.
A man spiritually prepared for my doctrine will be able to perform superhuman works. From his spirit and body, a light, a power, and a strength will emanate, which will allow him to do that which intelligence alone is not able to perform.
A man spiritually prepared by my doctrine. What does that mean?
Someone who knows this
you got to read the scripture. You got to read the Bible. You got to read the scripture, not just the Third Testament, but the New Testament, the Old Testament. You might have to read some other stuff to be prepared by his doctrine. The more you know, the more power you got. But once you have this power, what does it say? You'll be able to perform superhuman works, prodigies and miracles, stuff that we call prodigies and miracles. But once we have this doctrine, they're no longer a miracle. It's like, hey, that's what I do now.
Right.
You want the rain to stop? Give me a call. I'll work on it for you. From his spirit and from a body of light, a power and a strength will emanate, which will allow him to do that which intelligence alone is not able to perform. So, supernatural. Right. But we have to evolve. And how? Through the knowledge of his doctrine. Preparation and doctrine. All right, let's go.
This is the time which the divine light shall shine plainly in my followers, who will exhibit the gifts of the Spirit by showing that they do not need earthly goods nor material sciences to perform charity and work prodigies. They shall heal in my name, curing the hopelessly ill, transforming water to healing balsam, and raising the dead from their deathbeds. Their prayers shall have the power to calm the wind, to surge the elements, and combat epidemics and evil influences.
Okay, so it's talking about his followers and how his followers are going to have all of these gifts, right? But where are they going to get these gifts from? Spirituality. That's why we're giving this class, is because this is what is going to get us here. Once we get there, we're going to be able to heal, be able to cure, be able to transform waters into healing balm. I mean, this is a lot of stuff, a lot of gifts that we have, and we get them through spirituality.
Right. 23. The possessed shall be relieved of their obsessions, their persecutors, and their oppressors before the word, the prayer, and the power of my new disciples.
Okay. So these new disciples that he's talking about are who? The ones who are embracing his doctrine, embracing spirituality, putting away from materialistic stuff and non-truths and the ways of the world, and embracing this stuff. They're going to have a lot of powers, a lot of gifts, right? And we think a lot of times that the 144,000 light workers, they're going to come with all of these spiritual gifts, but you got to remember that they're just first. They're just the first ones to get these gifts. Once we do the things that they've done, doctrine, spiritualization and stuff, we're all going to have these powers. We're all going to be, these superhumans. All right, go ahead.
24. Spirituality means the elevation of the sentiments, purity in life, faith, love of others, charity, humility before God, and profound respect for the gifts received. When you achieve any of these virtues, your spiritual gaze begins to enter the mansion of love and perfection. And therefore, when they reach a state of spirituality while on earth, you will be able to say that you inhabit, at least in moments of prayer, the spiritual valley. At the same time, you shall receive the light that reveal events of the future, because for the spirit that has begun to ascend, the future becomes less and less a mystery.
All right, now here's a definition we can add to the one we had before. Spirituality means the elevation of the sentiments, purity in life, faith, love of others, charity, humility before God, and profound respect for the gifts received. Now, see, understand, we're all about to become spiritualized. Everybody on the planet, from Donald Trump to Donald Duck, is about to become spiritualized. But the thing about it, most of us are going to do it during the huge event that's going to be, really destructive.
Forced
into doing it. Those who want to do it early, you can, but you have to have an understanding of all that's going on here. Once you understand these parts here, you don't have to wait for the earthquake or the volcano or, the meteors to come out of heaven. You could already be a little more prepared for that kind of thing. Now notice this part right here. He says, when you achieve any of these virtues that we just mentioned here, your spiritual gaze begins to enter the mansion of love and perfection, and therefore you will reach a state of spirituality while still on earth. Right? So you can be spiritualized while you're here.
So that's why you're always pushing it.
Yeah, because you will be able to say that you inhabit. Now this is important. You will be able to say that you inhabit, at least in the moments of prayer, during a time of prayer, you inhabit the spiritual valley. Right? You are actually in the spiritual valley. You are spiritualized. Now, the spiritual valley, that should stand out to you, because when is the other time that we're going to be in the spiritual valley? After we're dead. That's the other time you see the spiritual valley, is when you're dead. But, by what does it say? By having any of those gifts, even momentarily, you can reach the spirituality without having to die first. What they say, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Right.
Well, you don't have to so quick. You can at least be able to get there, and momentarily by embracing these gifts.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's go on. At the same time, you shall receive light that reveals. Now, this light he's talking about is understanding. You shall get the understanding that reveals the events of the future.
There's talking about foresight into the future.
Right. Right, but it says, because for the spirit that has begun to ascend, the future becomes less and less a mystery. Right. So once we begin to climb Jacob's ladder, we start to know what's coming down the road.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, disciples, only in human life is man ignorant of what will happen in the future, of the events of tomorrow, not knowing his destiny, nor the path he should have to follow, or what will be his end.
See, I did a mathematical equation one time. E equals MC squared. I'm going to write that down. Y'all can't see it, but E equals MC squared. Now, E is the energy. That's the energy. Think of the energy that you have inside of yourself. M being the mass that you have, and C being the speed at which you travel. So now when you die, your mass is going to go to zero. So if we do the equation, we have C, which is speed, is equal to energy over mass. The mass is dead, which means that it's zero. And any number that goes to zero, any number that's divided by zero is infinity, except zero. But it's infinity. So that means your speed goes to infinity. Now, when your speed goes to infinity, guess what? You can transcend time. You can move through time. Right? You didn't know that, did you?
Well, I'm thinking about CERN. My mind immediately goes to CERN.
Okay. Well, and so that lets us know, that gives us a hint at how all of this thing is going to kind of work when we think about it. But let's go on before I confuse somebody else besides myself.
Okay, where am I at? Well, I think that was very interesting about how he says that about human life is the only thing that doesn't know about the future.
Yeah.
Is that what he's talking about?
Well, yeah, and that's what I was trying to get through with my little equation there, is once you are separated yourself from the material, the more you are separated from the material, the closer you are to being able to transcend through time. So you can know your future.
So what about Satan?
Satan lives on a fifth dimension as of now. He's about to get kicked down here to earth when Michael finishes whooping his butt or whatever. He's going to get kicked down here, and then he'll be kind of trapped to where we're at. But,
he does know our future.
He does know the future. He does know the future. He knows his future. He is a spirit being. He is a spiritual being. Right. So he does transcend time.
Okay, 26. Man could not bear the knowledge of all the trials that he will have to experience in his life. In my charity for him, I have created that veil between his present and his future, preventing him from losing his mind, knowing and beholding all which he will have to live and feel.
So if somebody came to you about 10 or 20 years ago and told you were going to have to go through all you went through for the last 4 or 5 years, what would you think?
I would try to walk away from it. I would get away. I would probably lose my mind. I would probably lose my mind because
knowing that it was coming.
Knowing that Yeah.
So he did us a favor by making sure we don't know what we have on the road, what's coming down the path.
Mm.
All right, let's go on.
Okay. Number 27. In contrast, the spirit, a being strongly armored and created for eternity, has the power to know its destiny and the strength to understand and accept those trials that await it. For it knows that at the end of the road, when it has followed it with obedience to the law, it shall come to the promised land, the paradise of the spirit, which is the state of evolution, purity, and perfection that it will reach in the end. So it's saying that the spirit knows this stuff, and it's given to us for to help us, to strengthen us.
Yeah.
To strengthen us.
Well, to strengthen us, to protect us. You know, our spirit man is us. We have to remember that our spirit man is us.
You cannot reach the level of spirituality of your master in order to know what your destiny holds and what the future offers you. But by means of your elevation, I shall make you sense the nearness of some events.
This is what we're talking about. Well, when we talked about earlier about how some events will be made known to us for our protection, so that we, you kind of know that there's something down that road. You say, I don't know if I'm gonna go down that road today, and find out that there was a big train wreck down there, and you possibly could have been involved in it. So he says he'll give, through our spirituality, we'll get these kind of insights into our future.
That presentiment, that seeing of the future, that knowledge of your destiny, you shall begin to achieve as your being, formed of body and spirit, continues ascending on the road of spirituality, which I tell you again is faith, purity, and the love of life. It is love and charity for your fellow men. It is humility and love before your Lord.
All right, so he's defining this now. It's through this knowledge that we'll be able to embrace this spirituality and understand what it is and live, in this kingdom of heaven type mentality that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, one thing that I'm definitely seeing over and over again is the charity.
All right, let's do this last verse before we get into another section, dear mother. All right, go ahead.
30. Be alert, so that you can recognize the true prophets and the false, so that you do not fight against those who, like you, are fulfilling missions confined to them by my divinity, so that you may recognize the true prophets and the false, and confirm the works of these and destroy the works of the others.